got a new mic. And for our last month of the summer, it's time we hit the beach with some good old monsters coming out of the surf. Or going back into the surf, depending on your film. First up, we have a nice little well-done flick called Night Tide. It was made in the early 60s by Curtis Harrington, who would go on to have a pretty prolific career in the 60s and 70s, especially in TV films like The Dead Don't Die and The Cat Creature. And he also made other horror films in the theater, like the Carrie knockoff, Ruby, as well as another film with this film's star, Queen of Blood. The film's star is Dennis Hopper, a well-known actor, a contemporary of James Dean, and appeared with him in two films, Rebel Without a Cause and Giant. Of course, Dean unfortunately passed away in a car accident, and Hopper would go on to have many comebacks in his career. He was a well-regarded actor, but he would tend to get on the wrong side of some directors, most notably Henry Hathaway, who, after doing I don't know how many hundreds of takes, he in From Hell to Texas, they wouldn't work together again until Sons of Katie Elder. And in between that time, Hopper was kind of blacklisted, but he was able to make films like this one, and he had a bit of a minor comeback with Easy Rider that he unfortunately squandered in the drug-fueled last movie, which he would then work sporadically and until he had his major comeback in the 80s with Blue Velvet, and would continue with many film roles after that until his death. Probably his best film during the latter part of his career was the alcoholic father of a high school basketball player in the movie Hoosiers, which he got nominated for. Our film starts with Hopper playing a sailor named Johnny, who's on a weekend leave, and he's catching the sights of this little seaside community. And while in a club enjoying a beer, he spots an attractive young lady, and he goes to talk to her, but she doesn't seem that interested. When this odd woman comes up and starts to talk to her.
Με τους δικούς σου, αγάπη μου. Ναι, πολύ σύντομα. Θα συναντηθούμε ξανά.
She was actually speaking Greek there, and no translation though. As the mystery. This freaks out the girl, and she gets up and leaves. But Johnny's intrigued by her, and he goes out, follows her, convinces her to let him walk her home, learns her name is Mora, and before she goes upstairs to her apartment, agrees to meet him the next morning for brunch. The next morning, she lives over a little amusement park with a carousel. Johnny meets the proprietor of the carousel and his daughter, and they have a bit of an odd reaction when he tells them who he's there to see.
He's going to visit a girl named Mora.
Mora?
Uh-huh.
I ain't never seen you around here before. You, just, meet her or something?
Weird, huh? You just meet her or something? Yeah. Doesn't that make you kind of suspicious? Well, he's got no time to ponder that. He goes up to the apartment upstairs. They go out onto the balcony where they have a brunch of fresh caught fish. And Maura tells him about her job working as a mermaid at the amusement pier with her adopted father. And he tells her about being in the Navy in his first year. And then Maura shows him a neat little trick.
Hey!
That
Wow.
won't hurt you.
Apparently, she can call birds with her mind. I don't know. Anywho, after breakfast, they go and she takes him to where she works, where he meets her adoptive father, Captain Murdoch.
Yes, well, perhaps she's told you all about it.
No, she hasn't. She told me something about coming from an island.
You know, you might be interested in that story. It's a very unusual one. Now, why don't you come and visit me sometime?
Well, listen, they...
Well, after that, he goes into the exhibit before it opens, of course, and he gets to see Maura as a mermaid. Well, Johnny is clearly smitten, and he starts spending all his weekend leaves up there. He catches the bus, takes it to the little town, gets with Maura. They go to the beach, frolic, have conversations, kiss. Then one night, while Maura's doing a dance for everybody on the beach, that woman appears again. Thankfully, Maura quickly recovers, and she has Johnny take her home, and she seems to be okay. The next morning, Johnny seems to be as happy to have coffee with the merry-go-round carousel proprietor, his daughter Ellen, and their fortune teller, mystic friend, when a police officer comes by to ask a few questions. He can tell them nothing new, and then he leaves. Johnny's kind of curious, and Ellen kind of tells him what's what.
2 years, Maura's had 2 boyfriends, and they're both dead now.
Well, do the police think that had something to do with her?
Nothing's been proved.
No, not yet. But don't you think the fact that it's happened twice is enough?
That is something to ponder. But Johnny's got no time. He spotted that strange lady. And she starts leading, and he starts to follow her. And she starts leading him all over the little community. Until finally... Ooh, creepy. Look at that, rocking chairs just empty and rocking and no one else around. Well, coincidentally, this just happens to be where Captain Murdoch lives. So he and Johnny have a bit of a drunken conversation.
I found her on an island. I didn't know then what she was to become.
Become?
I didn't know then that she belonged to that ancient race. She's a monster. And if you don't stop seeing her...
So, apparently she's a mermaid. Before he can finish that thought, he kind of passes out drunk. And Johnny takes an opportunity to do a little snooping around the house, especially Maura's old room. Johnny then returns to Maura, where he describes what Murdoch told him, and she tells him it's all true, and that the woman they keep seeing is one of the sea people. She's waiting for her to return to the sea with her. She's always hearing them calling her, and it's getting harder and harder to resist. Later, Johnny goes to see the fortune teller and gets some more cryptic news.
And you, it saddens me to tell you, but you are in danger, grave danger.
What kind of danger?
Now that is a question you do not need to ask me. The answer lies already in your heart.
Why does nobody just come right out and say what they're thinking here? You're in danger, but only you know where that danger lies. Anyway, Johnny talks to Ellen again, and we get some interesting, subtle intimations from that conversation.
Are you in love with her?
Yes.
It's a funny thing about love. It can happen very suddenly, you know what I mean?
Very suddenly. I'm beginning to think Ellen has fallen for our little sailor man. Well, after that, Johnny goes upstairs to Maura, who's in the bath, and he decides to take a nap. And Maura comes out of the bath, starts to kiss him, changes into an octopus and tries to kill him. But then he wakes up and realizes it's all a dream. But Maura's not there. So he goes to look for her and finds her in a rather dire predicament. Apparently, the sea people were calling for her to join them, and she almost gave in. Johnny spends the night with her, sleeping on the floor, of course. You know, 61. You just didn't show that kind of stuff on TV, on film. Psycho notwithstanding. Anyway, next morning she says she's fine. Johnny is wiped out, and she tells him to go get a massage, where it starts to work until Murdoch shows up.
It doesn't matter. It's just that I want to give you a bit of advice. You must be especially careful now at the time of the full moon, because that's when the tides pull the strongest.
Week of the full moon, tide at its strongest. Well, After the rather now useless massage, Johnny goes back to Maura's, and she wants to go scuba diving. He's not sure it's a good idea, but she talks him into it. Johnny, making it to the surface, waits for Maura to come up. And waits. And waits. Eventually, Johnny returns to his hotel, where he has another nightmare about Maura. Seeing the local paper is not having anything said about Maura's body washing up, he goes to the amusement pier and finds her act is still going, although it's a little different now. Seems Murdoch has put her on display. Dead. Although the kids before him probably just thought it was a fake dummy. And then Murdoch shows up with a gun.
The murderer always returns to the scene of his crime. Oh, I know this isn't the exact spot where the deed occurred, but you had to see her, didn't you? You had to see the result of your monstrous act.
But I loved her.
Murdoch tries to shoot him. Lights go out. There's a lot of crashing. And the noises brought some police over to see what the heck all that was about. Later, at the police station, Murdoch, in a fit of remorse, unburdens himself.
Religion of the sea people. Slowly I put into her young and pliable mind the idea that she was one of them, that someday she must rejoin them, and that she couldn't expect to have normal relations with ordinary people. Eventually my love wasn't enough for her. She had to have another kind of love. And when she began those relationships, I decided the only thing to do was to cut them off at their source. So I killed those two young men. So my experiment in psychology failed. Or perhaps it succeeded too well. She couldn't face the recurrence of what had gone before. So rather than destroy the person she loved, she decided to embrace the rapture of the depths.
Oh, and as for that strange woman?
About. Johnny told me about a woman who frightened Maura. She was supposed to be one of these sea people. I assume she was part of your plan.
Woman, I don't know what you mean.
You know, the one that I followed to your house that day. Remember?
I vaguely think you mentioned something about that before, but there wasn't any woman.
Oh, well, the policeman just assumes he's trying to cover for her. The shore patrol has shown up to escort Johnny back to his ship. He's not under arrest. And as Ellen says goodbye, there's the implication that on his next weekend leave he will come up to see her. And then we get a bit of a literary ending. Sort of a bittersweet ending to a rather sad and affecting story. Harrington, who also wrote the script, wanted to give it a real Edgar Allan Poe feel, and he succeeds for the most part. That's why the quote at the end is from Annabelle Lee, which ties in nicely. But of course, the most obvious visual implication here throughout the story is the old RKO version of Cat People. Has a similar plot structure of, guy meets interesting woman, she has some issues, they fall in love. There's another woman that's causing a little bit of strife, but mostly it's the woman's own fragile mental state that seems to be the problem. The only difference being that in Cat People, the woman actually turned into a cat and killed someone. Here, it turns out it was a mystery all the time. She wasn't really a mermaid. She didn't really belong to the sea people, except for that mysterious lady who kept showing up, and the way she would disappear. Interesting. The uniform Hopper wore, actually, it didn't show up as white on the camera, or as white as they wanted it, so they colored it to make it look better in black and white. And unfortunately, at one point, Hopper almost got arrested by the real shore patrol for being confused as a real sailor who was going around in a dirty uniform. Hopper also did his own stunts, the underwater stunts, instead of a stuntman. So, kudos to him for that. Now, the actor who played Murdoch, Gavin Muir, he was actually not the first choice for Harrington. Harrington had wanted Peter Lorre, who would have been amazing in the role, but Lorre wanted too much money. He would have deserved it, but this had a real low budget. They could not afford Lorre. So they went with Gavin Muir, who does a really good job. He's at times friendly and gregarious, and always giving that little bit of well, you should be careful kind of warnings. And really comes off really well playing on Hopper's fears. And the actress who played Ellen was Luann Anders. And she's probably best known for playing the scheming wife of the eldest son in Dementia 13, who gets, in a copy of Psycho, gets killed by the murderer about 30 minutes into the film. She does a really good job. Mara was played by Linda Lawson, and she does a good job. She has a certain exoticness about her looks, and she very well plays that fragile, kind of delicate character. But Hopper gives an interesting performance. He's very not Dennis Hopper in this. I mean, if you've ever seen any of his performances, he's always a little out there, and here he's doing rather well, playing a fairly ordinary person who's involved in things that are just way beyond his capacity to understand. And he plays that well. The fear, the frustration, the confusion, and the determination to help this person. All in all, it's a nice little arty thriller. And I think it was Harrington's first directorial film, and he shows a lot of flair, and he's just an excellent filmmaker who, if you've ever read his autobiography, a lot of interesting stories in there. He led a very interesting life and went through a lot of trouble getting his films made, unfortunately. Except for his TV films, but those were more gun for hire kind of things. Well, that's all I have to say about this particular little undiscovered gem. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. And until we hit the beach again, please stay after for my favorite scene.
Don't be alarmed. That's just a little Arabian souvenir. The hand of a thief. The Mohammedans punish their thieves by removing the offending portions of the body.